actual Karen. Okay, Boomer here. Not one of those Karens victimizing people like Christian Cooper for politely asking her to obey the park rules. I want to offer my sympathy to family and friends of George Floyd and to the people who knew him best in Minneapolis and Houston, which happens to be my hometown. I support the peaceful protest, Black Lives Matter, and I can't imagine how difficult it has been for the African American community to have to wait for centuries for equal justice under the law. This is about the complete destruction of the office of the president by Donald Trump and his GOP enablers. I was prompted to watch what James Lankford, Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma, called the really good speech that preceded the use of rubber bullets and tear gas before he stormed the ramparts of the St. John's protest relief station. I thought it might give me nausea for the rest of the day, but instead it disgusted and angered me. About halfway through, he goes into this list of this, not that, these, not those suggestions. I would like to add we need leadership, not violent rhetoric directed at local officials. Who is that announcer? He sounds like he is introducing some kind of reality star. Right, he is. He sounds like he's introducing the producer of a beauty pageant. Right, he is. He should be saying something like, in this time of grief and strife, here is the President of the United States. And the President should be sympathizing with those grieving, asking for calm, and offering the full assistance of the federal resources where they are needed. 2 paragraphs in, he abandons any kind of unifying strategy and starts attacking state and local leaders and orders them to dominate their citizens with the threat of military force. He will send all the firepower they may or may not need and will force it upon them if they do not do what he says. If it goes bad, he will claim no responsibility. Don't forget that he just put the entire pandemic in the hands of the governors, and all he offered was confusion and vilification. At one point, he talks about nurses who have been fighting the pandemic being afraid to leave their houses. These are the same nurses he refused PPEs and other equipment while they were afraid to enter their homes for fear they would pass the virus to their families. Some have died without their families while waiting for Trump to care. Sorry, I messed up my thing here. His concern for these riots hitting the poorest of the poor will cause me to throw up on my keyboard if I dwell on it too much. The pandemic has already hit them the worst, thanks to his ignoring the warnings. The day before Memorial Day, he was demanding they all go back to work without any mandatory protection from the virus. They have been denied a living wage for decades upon decades. The GOP Congress takes turns giving huge tax cuts to the wealthy and voting to repeal the only health care many of them have ever had. When they should have been increasing SNAP benefits during the pandemic, On April 1st, they began knocking 700,000 families off of food stamps. Give me a barf bag. I was a teenager in the 1960s, and he does not sound like any of the presidents of that time. He sounds like George Wallace, Bull Connor, Ross Barnett, and many others. Go back further, and he sounds like Nathan Bedford Forrest or that Mississippi governor that Pettus Bridge is named for, or any other grand wizard of the Klan. Taking back the streets, violence and dominance was all they talked about, too. They killed innocent people, burned a lot more African American churches, homes, and businesses, and no one was convicted. They are still waiting for justice. Nice of him to leave out all those unite the right guys for specific blame for rioting. They will benefit more than any other group from destroying African American neighborhoods. But they're fine people, and his base. He keeps mentioning that this country is ruled by laws which he and the GOP do not believe apply to him. He talks about law and order while he has vilified or fired anyone who even thinks about investigating him. He ignores subpoenas and refuses to allow his exonerating witnesses to testify because a couple of them might put country before Trump. He constantly demands loyalty to him first. And he makes sure to be specific about defending your Second Amendment rights, which is code for Second Amendment remedies, like showing up in groups with assault weapons to terrorize the governor because you need a haircut and do not care about protecting others from a virus you may unknowingly be carrying. GOP leaders have demanded that the greatest generation and the boomer generation just go ahead and die for an unregulated economy. Do not forget that the main objective of the GOP in the latest relief package is liability shields for businesses with no requirements to protect the workforce. He said he has a passionate love for our country, and he will help your family unless they want a living wage, paid sick leave, health care, job security, or safety. Then he smiles and says thank you to whoever was there, and says now he's going to a very special place that he has been to at least twice since taking office, Inauguration Day and St. Patty's Day 2019. There is no way he would walk into a crowd that size unless they were yelling to lock up Hillary, the Bidens, and the first African American president, So they gassed peaceful protesters and the entire group of volunteers and ministers manning the St. John's Relief Station. And then he took pictures where the relief station had been while lifting a Bible that wasn't his and glaring at people who were not adoring